I always thought family loyalty was sacred, until the night I caught my younger sister pressing her lips against my boyfriend's mouth just 7 days before her wedding. My name is Nadia, and at 27, I believed I understood the boundaries that should never be crossed. Madison, my 24-year-old sister, had always been the spoiled one, getting everything handed to her on a silver platter. I had been dating Jake for 2 years, and our relationship was serious enough that I was thinking about marriage. Madison was set to marry her fiance Tyler, in what promised to be the wedding of the year, with every detail perfectly planned and paid for by our parents. What I discovered that evening would destroy our family forever, but what happened at her wedding altar made everyone gasp in shock. Before I tell you what unfolded that devastating night, please let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. And if you have ever dealt with family betrayal, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories that might help you feel less alone. Trust me, you will not believe how this sister drama exploded at the wedding. Growing up in Phoenix, Arizona, Madison and I lived in what most people would call a comfortable middle-class home. But comfortable was never enough for Madison, who had been the golden child since birth. While I studied hard-earned my degree and landed a job as a marketing coordinator at a small but growing company, Madison floated through her design program with our parents funding every whim and desire. The difference between us was not just age but attitude. I learned early that if I wanted something, I had to work for it. Madison learned that if she pouted long enough, someone would hand it to her. The pattern started when we were kids. Madison would see me with a new toy, a friend, or later a crush, and somehow she always found a way to make it hers. Our parents called it sibling rivalry, but I called it theft. She borrowed my clothes without asking, befriended my friends until they preferred her company, and even flirted with boys I liked until they asked her out instead. Each time I was told to be understanding because Madison was younger, prettier, more sensitive. 2 years ago, everything changed when I met Jake through a work project. He was a graphic designer with an easy laugh and genuine kindness that drew me in immediately. Jake was funny in a way that never put anyone down, reliable when he made promises, and caring enough to remember small details about my day. Most importantly, he saw me for who I really was, not as Madison's older sister or the responsible one. Our relationship progressed naturally from friendship to dating to something much deeper. Jake made me feel like I was enough exactly as I was. What I loved most about Jake was his naive assumption that everyone had good intentions. He treated Madison like the little sister he never had, offering help with design projects and listening patiently to her dramatic stories about college life. I noticed the way Madison lit up around Jake, how she found excuses to visit when he was over, how she laughed a little too loudly at his jokes. But Jake seemed oblivious to the flirtation, treating her attention as normal family interaction. 10 months ago, Madison announced her engagement to Tyler, an investment banker from a wealthy family who looked perfect on paper. Tyler was everything our parents hoped their daughter would marry: successful, well-educated, from good stock, as my mother put it. The proposal was elaborate, the ring was enormous, and the wedding planning began immediately. Madison threw herself into creating what she called her dream wedding, with our parents happily writing checks for every expensive detail. I was asked to be maid of honor despite the ongoing tension between Madison and me. Family pressure made it impossible to refuse without causing drama, so I accepted with a fake smile. The months of wedding planning revealed Madison at her most demanding and controlling. Nothing was good enough, every vendor was incompetent, and every bridesmaid was somehow failing to meet her expectations. But what struck me as odd was how Madison never seemed genuinely happy about marrying Tyler. She was excited about the wedding, the dress, the party, but when Tyler was not around, she seemed almost anxious about the actual marriage part. During family dinners, I started noticing something that made me uncomfortable. Madison would sit closer to Jake than necessary, touch his arm when she laughed, ask his opinion about things that had nothing to do with him. When I mentioned it to Jake, he brushed off my concerns, saying Madison was just stressed about the wedding and needed support. The week before the wedding, these interactions intensified in a way that set off every alarm bell I had. Wedding week arrived with all the chaos I expected, and some I did not. The final preparations consumed everyone's attention as we decorated the venue, attended final dress fittings, and coordinated the rehearsal dinner details. Madison seemed to have a breakdown every other day, usually about how she was not ready for marriage, how everything was too much, how she felt trapped by expectations. Meanwhile, Tyler's family was growing frustrated with the mounting costs, and Madison's controlling attitude toward every wedding detail. I was juggling my maid of honor duties with my full-time job, staying late at work while trying to manage Madison's constant requests. Jake being the supportive boyfriend he was offered to help wherever needed. What started as innocent assistance gradually became something that made me increasingly uncomfortable. Madison began asking Jake for help with personal tasks that had nothing to do with the wedding and everything to do with getting him alone. Tuesday brought the first red flag I could not ignore. Madison called Jake directly, not through our family group chat, asking him to help move furniture in her apartment while I was working late. When I asked Jake about it later, he said Madison seemed emotional and he did not want to leave her struggling alone. Wednesday night's bachelorette party provided another disturbing moment. Madison got drunk faster than usual and started making cryptic comments about people getting what they deserve and how some people do not appreciate what they have. Thursday escalated my concern when Madison had what she called an emergency, requiring Jake's help with assembling wedding favors. Jake came home later than expected, seemed distracted, and gave vague answers when I asked about his evening. That night, I finally confronted him directly, asking if Madison was being inappropriate or crossing boundaries. Jake's response frustrated me more than reassured me. He dismissed my concerns, saying I was being paranoid and that Madison was just a stressed bride who needed support from people she trusted. Friday morning brought a text message that Madison sent directly to Jake instead of our family group chat about rehearsal changes. When I pointed out that she had his number memorized well enough to text him privately, Jake said I was reading too much into normal communication. That afternoon, my coworker mentioned seeing Jake and Madison together at a coffee shop during lunch, sitting close and looking like they were having an intense conversation. When I asked Jake about it, he said Madison had called him upset about cold feet, and he met her to talk through her anxiety. Friday evening changed everything. I was supposed to attend a late-night venue walkthrough with the wedding coordinator, but she canceled last minute due to a family emergency. Instead of calling to reschedule, I decided to head home early around 9 in the evening to spend time with Jake. His car was not in our driveway when I arrived, and I assumed he was still helping someone in my family with last-minute wedding preparations. I entered our house quietly, hearing voices coming from the living room. Thinking Jake might be on a work call, I approached carefully to avoid interrupting. Through the crack in the doorway, I saw something that made my blood freeze. Madison was standing in our living room wearing her wedding dress, apparently having a final fitting or just trying it on. Jake was standing close to her, close enough that I could see the tension in both their bodies. Madison was crying about making a huge mistake marrying Tyler, saying she felt trapped and scared about spending her life with someone she was not sure she loved. Jake was comforting her, his voice gentle and caring in the way that had made me fall in love with him. Then, without warning, Madison grabbed Jake's face with both hands and kissed him passionately. My heart stopped as I watched Jake pull back for just a moment before responding to the kiss, his arms moving around her waist. The kiss lasted only seconds, but those seconds shattered my world completely. I could not breathe, could not move, could not process what I was seeing. The two people I trusted most in the world were betraying me in my own living room, with Madison wearing the dress she would use to marry another man in less than 24 hours. I retreated to our bedroom, shaking so hard I could barely walk. My mind raced through every interaction, every red flag I had ignored, every time Jake had dismissed my concerns as paranoia. 30 minutes later, Jake came home acting completely normal, asking about my evening as if nothing had happened. I confronted him immediately, my voice trembling as I said the words I never thought I would have to say: "I saw you kissing my sister." Jake's face went white, then red, then white again. His shock seemed genuine, but his explanation made everything worse. He said Madison had been crying about cold feet, that she kissed him suddenly, that it did not mean anything, that he pulled away as soon as he realized what was happening. But I had seen him respond to that kiss, had watched him hold her close, instead of pushing her away immediately. When I pressed him on this detail, Jake became defensive, saying I was making it bigger than it was, that Madison was emotional, and he was trying to be supportive. The argument that followed was the worst fight we had ever had. Jake minimized the betrayal while I tried to express the depth of my pain. He kept saying it was just a kiss, that Madison was confused, that I was overreacting. Finally, unable to stand his justifications anymore, I told him to leave. Jake packed a bag and went to stay with his friend, leaving me alone with my heartbreak and the knowledge that my sister's wedding was in 18 hours. Saturday morning arrived gray and cold, matching my emotional state perfectly. I had not slept at all, spending the night alternating between crying and staring at the ceiling in disbelief. By 7 in the morning, I knew I had to make a decision that would change everything for everyone involved. I could stay silent and watch Tyler marry my sister, knowing she had been unfaithful just days before their wedding. Or I could tell Tyler the truth and destroy the wedding that had consumed our family's time, money, and energy for 10 months. I called my best friend Samantha at 7:15, knowing she would be awake and hoping she could help me think clearly. Samantha listened to the whole story without interrupting, then delivered her verdict without hesitation. Tyler deserved to know the truth before making a life-changing commitment. She pointed out that Madison's behavior was not a one-time mistake, but part of a pattern of taking what belonged to other people. If Madison could betray me with Jake, she could betray Tyler with someone else after they were married. The decision terrified me because I knew it would destroy our family, cost our parents thousands of dollars, and humiliate Madison in front of everyone she knew. But the alternative was letting Tyler enter a marriage based on deception, and that felt even more wrong. I spent an hour researching where Tyler was staying, knowing the groomsmen had booked rooms at a hotel downtown for the bachelor party weekend. At 10 in the morning, I drove to Tyler's hotel with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The wedding was scheduled to start at 4 in the afternoon, giving Tyler 6 hours to decide what to do with the information I was about to share. I found Tyler in the lobby with his best man, both of them relaxed and joking about the night before. I asked to speak with Tyler privately, and something in my expression must have warned him that this conversation was serious. We sat in a quiet corner of the hotel restaurant, and I told Tyler everything. I described finding Madison and Jake in my living room, the kiss I witnessed, Jake's admission, and attempts to minimize what had happened. Tyler's initial reaction was confusion and disbelief. He asked if I was absolutely certain about what I had seen, pointing out that this revelation could destroy everything they had built together. To support my story, I showed Tyler the text messages I had discovered between Madison and Jake, communications that were more frequent and intimate than they should have been. I also explained the pattern of inappropriate behavior I had noticed in recent weeks, the private meetings, the emotional dependency Madison had developed on my boyfriend. Tyler listened to every detail, his expression moving from shock to anger to profound hurt. When I finished talking, Tyler asked for time to think. He dismissed his best man and groomsmen, saying he needed an hour alone to process what he had learned. I left the hotel knowing I had done the right thing, but feeling terrible about the pain I had just caused. Tyler was a good man who deserved better than a wife who would cheat with her sister's boyfriend a week before their wedding. I returned home and spent 2 hours avoiding phone calls from my family about wedding preparations. Madison called repeatedly, asking where I was and insisting she needed her maid of honor to help with final details. I could not bear to speak with her, knowing what I knew and what Tyler was deciding in his hotel room. Finally, I forced myself to get ready for what I suspected would be the most dramatic wedding in our family's history. I arrived at the venue at 2 in the afternoon, putting on my maid of honor smile and pretending everything was normal. The bridal suite was chaos as expected, with Madison stressed and emotional, while bridesmaids did hair and makeup around her. Madison pulled me aside for a private moment, thanking me for keeping Jake company the night before when she was having her breakdown. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. She told me she had kissed Jake, but it was just a goodbye kiss to her single life. and she hoped I understood. Madison's casual confession confirmed that she saw nothing wrong with what she had done. In her mind, kissing my boyfriend was just another thing she was entitled to take because she wanted it. I managed to keep my expression neutral and not reveal that Tyler already knew everything. Jake arrived shortly after avoiding eye contact with me and creating awkward tension that several bridesmaids noticed. As 4 o'clock approached, Tyler was nowhere to be seen. The groomsmen looked worried, whispering among themselves about their missing groom. I knew Tyler was struggling with his decision, and part of me hoped he would find a way to forgive Madison and proceed with the wedding. But a larger part of me knew that Tyler deserved better than a marriage that started with betrayal. At exactly 4 o'clock, the wedding music began. I walked down the aisle wearing my maid of honor dress and a fake smile, seeing Tyler at the altar, looking determined rather than happy. The other bridesmaids followed, and finally Madison made her entrance looking radiant in the wedding dress I had seen her wearing while she kissed my boyfriend. Our father walked Madison down the aisle with pride, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Tyler's expression remained unreadable as he watched his bride approach. The officiant began the ceremony with traditional words about love, commitment, and faithfulness. We reached the section for vows, then the moment I will remember for the rest of my life. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union and should speak now or forever hold their peace, Tyler himself spoke up. In a clear, strong voice that carried throughout the venue, he said, "I object to this marriage." The gasps from 300 guests were audible as Madison's face went from radiant to confused to panicked in seconds. Tyler continued speaking, his voice steady, despite the chaos his words were causing. He said, "Madison, I know about yesterday with Jake. I know about the kiss. I know about the inappropriate relationship you have been carrying on, and I know that you confessed it to your sister as if it meant nothing." Madison immediately began denying everything, but Tyler was not finished. He said, "I deserve a wife who is faithful before our wedding even happens, not someone who betrays her sister and lies to me." Tyler removed his wedding ring, placed it carefully on the altar, and walked away. The venue erupted in complete chaos as family members demanded explanations, guests whispered frantically, and Madison collapsed in hysterical tears. She pointed at me and screamed that I had told Tyler that I had ruined her special day, that everything was my fault for being jealous of her happiness. The immediate aftermath of Tyler's objection was unlike anything I had ever experienced. 300 guests sat in stunned silence while Madison's hysteria filled the decorated venue. She accused me publicly of sabotaging her wedding out of jealousy, screaming that I could not stand to see her happy. Our parents rushed to the altar trying to convince Tyler to reconsider, promising that whatever misunderstanding had occurred could be worked out after the ceremony. Jake, who had been sitting with my family, looked like he wanted to disappear entirely. He tried to approach both Tyler and me to apologize, but neither of us wanted to hear from him. Tyler's family gathered around him supportively, clearly proud of his decision to prioritize his dignity over social expectations. Meanwhile, my parents were frantically trying to salvage the situation, suggesting we move to the reception and work everything out privately. But Tyler's mind was made, and his exit was dignified, despite the chaos around him. He thanked the guests for coming, apologized for the disruption, and walked out of the venue with his head held high. His groomsmen followed, leaving behind a trail of whispered conversations and confused relatives. The wedding reception was canceled immediately, leaving vendors confused and my parents facing the financial loss of an entire unused celebration. I left the venue quietly, driving home alone but feeling something I had not expected: relief. For the first time in months, the weight of keeping Madison's secrets and managing her drama was lifted from my shoulders. I had told the truth, protected someone from making a terrible mistake, and stood up for what was right, even when it cost me everything. The week following the canceled wedding was brutal for our family. Initially, my parents blamed me completely for ruining Madison's special day. They could not understand why I had not come to them first, why I had not tried to handle the situation privately, why I had chosen to hurt Madison instead of protecting her. I stood firm in my position, explaining repeatedly that I had saved Tyler from marrying someone who was already being unfaithful. Madison spent the week playing victim to anyone who would listen, minimizing her kiss with Jake as a meaningless mistake while painting me as the jealous sister who destroyed her happiness. She posted vague messages on social media about betrayal and family loyalty, generating sympathy from friends who did not know the whole story. Jake made multiple attempts to reconcile with me, insisting that the kiss meant nothing and that he loved only me. But I had learned something important about boundaries and self-respect. Trust once broken in such a fundamental way could not be rebuilt with apologies and explanations. Jake had chosen to respond to Madison's kiss instead of rejecting it immediately, and Madison had chosen to pursue my boyfriend while planning her own wedding. Both of their choices revealed character flaws that I could not overlook or forgive. Gradually, our extended family and friends learned the truth about what had happened. Most of them supported my decision to tell Tyler, recognizing that he had dodged a bullet by discovering Madison's unfaithfulness before marriage, rather than after. A few relatives thought I should have minded my own business, but their criticism felt hollow compared to the gratitude I saw in Tyler's eyes when he thanked me later for saving him from a mistake. 3 months after the canceled wedding, I made several important changes in my life. I ended my relationship with Jake, permanently moved to my own apartment, and focused on rebuilding my sense of self-worth. The process was painful but necessary, like recovering from surgery that removes something toxic from your body. I started therapy to work through the family trauma and relationship patterns that had allowed me to accept poor treatment for so long. Madison eventually sought help for her depression and embarrassment, slowly beginning to acknowledge that her actions had consequences beyond her own happiness. Our relationship remained strained but gradually improved as she took responsibility for her choices and worked to rebuild trust with our family. Our parents apologized for initially blaming me, recognizing that they had enabled Madison's entitled behavior throughout her life. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, Tyler sent me a thank you card expressing his gratitude for my courage in telling him the truth. He had started dating someone new, someone who respected boundaries and understood the value of faithfulness. Jake learned that actions have consequences when he lost both his relationship with me and his friendship with my family. Madison learned that taking things that belong to other people eventually catches up with you. As for me, I learned that sometimes being the bearer of difficult truth is the most loving thing you can do, even when everyone hates you for it. I discovered that true loyalty is not about protecting people from the consequences of their actions, but about protecting them from making life-changing mistakes based on lies. Most importantly, I realized that sometimes the person you are really saving is yourself. Looking back now, I realize that catching my sister kissing my boyfriend was not the worst thing that happened to our family. The worst thing would have been staying silent and watching Tyler marry someone who did not respect their commitment. Sometimes being the bearer of difficult truth is the most loving thing you can do, even when everyone hates you for it. True loyalty is not protecting people from consequences, but protecting them from making life-changing mistakes based on lies. And sometimes the person you are really saving is yourself. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between keeping family peace and telling a difficult truth? Let me know in the comments below what you would have done in my position. If this story resonated with you or helped you think about your own family dynamics, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about navigating complex relationships. Share this video with someone who might need to hear about standing up for what is right, even when it is hard. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is choose truth over comfort. I hope my experience helps you trust your instincts when something feels wrong, because your gut feeling is usually trying to protect you from something you do not want to see.